Hello and welcome to D-SETI. We are about to discuss UFO and UAP disclosure as Dreamwork. So the term disclosure is often used in the UFO UAP studies community to describe the process of UFO evidence becoming public. The notion here is that the government or military has known about UFOs for nearly a century and has engaged in disinformation campaigns to keep it all secret. If this is a surprise to you, I would invite you to check out some of the experiments the U.S. government did by way of the CIA with manipulating their own public, or the Brookings report that really did say, hey, Congress, if aliens ever showed up, the U.S. community can't handle it, so you should just lie to them, actually. That's on record as being one of the last recommendations about how we should deal with the UFO phenomenon from back in the mid-20th century. And there's a number of whistleblowers and testimony that this is actually happening. And it's a thing you could really go down many rabbit holes to explore. And I just know that you can trust your feelings when you can relate to a lot of the mass media around these things. If you feel something's off, you can really trust that, I would suppose. It's important to note that UFO ET contact testimony is dreamlike. That contact is dreamlike. If this is a surprise to you, please check out any other of our videos here at D-SETI. The dreamlike testimony can not lead to historic or objective conclusions directly, even though dreams are real. So it's really important to know that all of this testimony really is complicated in terms of how we understand it and what are the historic implications here. So dreams actually are mythic and not logical experiences, and therefore require you to have an experience of dreaming to make sense of it. This is really the message here, because on the one hand we have this whole disclosure dynamic where we're waiting for an external source of knowledge or whatever to say, yes, these things are real. But actually, at the end of the day, the fact is that these things are dreamlike, and that dreams and dream testimonies are mythic and not logical, that require interpretation and discernment to make historic and objective conclusions about, and that work of interpretation and discernment require you to actually do your own dream work in order to make sense of it. So the sense of waiting for someone else to do something just means you're waiting for yourself, actually. If you're waiting for the government to say these things are real, then you'll be waiting forever, because the thing you're actually waiting for is you to engage in your own dream work and exploration of the subject matter at a personally and subjectively real, deeply meaningful experience. And if you want to have these experiences, please do check out CE5, or the Human Initiated Contact Experience movement. Right. All right, so the U.S. congressional confusion, I want to talk about that. In May 2022, U.S. Congress met for the first time in 50 years to discuss UAPs. The Congress and the Associated Task Force from the Department of Defense exhibited profound confusion about how to study the phenomenon, which isn't their fault because it's profoundly confusing. The task force rejected narrative and anecdotal data in favor for objective sensor data. So they go, okay, all of this stuff is bizarre, but we actually have 400 reports of UAPs on a lot of different sensors, so let's study those. It's really important to note that empires, which the U.S. appears to be, have a particularly hard time with working with narrative testimony. And if we need an example, we can just go back to Socrates and the death of Socrates at the hands of the Athenian Empire. It serves as a potent warning. When Socrates was being put to death by the Athenian Empire, his friends were saying, hey, Socrates, why are you not afraid of death? And he moves from a logical way of talking, this really kind of philosophic, logical way of talking, and then he goes, I'm going to tell you a mythic experience. It is something I experienced. It's why I'm not afraid of death. but you're going to have a hard time understanding it because it requires you to have a personal experience, not just listen to me. And that's why philosophy is good to practice. But the Athenian Empire just couldn't handle it and killed Socrates, right? So that's really important to know, that when we are considering punishing people about sharing their testimonies of ET contact, that we will not have the type of testimony that satisfies exclusively the logical or objective side or means of knowledge. I want everyone to respect UAP and UFO narratives like dreams, right? So we see that they are dreamlike in nature, and working with dreams involves ethical principles. The ethical principle here is the respect of the dreamer as the final authority regarding the significance of the dream. So you might have an experience of a UFO. If it's real, is it a dreamlike experience? Is it both? What does it mean? Do you interpret it as a historically physical event? Was it a psychic event? Who knows? You get to say that, right? You get to let us know what that is. And if I'm coming in and telling you what you experienced, that's actually unethical, because this is actually dream work and not historic proof generation or whatever, right? If, however, we are using dreams in those sort of forensic investigations, then that becomes a different, whole nother can of worms. But I say let's not even go there, because we don't need to. That's not the typical practice of dreams, right? The other principle here is the respect of the dream as a multi-dimensional source of meaning, healing, and insight. So this means that you can interpret the dream a different way every single day, and it could be meaningful to you. And that's what we know from working with dreams. That's what it looks like when people are working with their ET contact experiences or memory or testimony. It grows over time, and there's multiple layers of significances that are added as the person develops. And we see that actually when like lifestyle changes, more contact happens, that sort of thing. Dreams are not historic testimony per se, but working with them might lead to insight. But working with dreams actually do lead to insight and empathy. That's what we know from dream studies. And we also know that they can kind of indirectly provide knowledge in extraordinary ways. So I'm just saying we need to respect UFO and UAP experiencers and their stories like dreams. And dreams have provided the ethics and epistemology framework we might need to study and relate to these testimonies, as opposed to thinking of them like eyewitness testimony. The study of UAP and UFO narratives like dreams. It's impossible to study another person's dreams, but you can study your own, and you can study their stories, right? Like, it's impossible to directly go like, what is their dream? What are they? We don't have sensors to that. Some scientists claim to develop things that scan the brain. That's really a primitive notion based on a really limited worldview as to what dreams are. But you can actually hear their stories. People tell you about them, so you can study those stories. It's just impossible to study from like an objective perspective of the direct subjective experience of someone else, just by definitions, right? The only way to study dreams is from within. So you have to actually engage in your own dreams and your own dream work to study the dreams of others. And so I'm saying, rather than rejecting UFO and UAP stories because they're dreamlike in nature, we should just simply study them like dreams. And so you can work with your own dreams or your own contact experiences through something like CE5 to gain insight into your own experience that you can use to understand the stories of others. And also, once you do that, you can actually engage in processes that are objective, that are quantitative and statistic. This is called content analysis, and this is a process that we use in dream studies. We say, let's take all of the dreams, let's count up the words involved, and let's make correlations between demographics and dreams and all these things. And we can produce a lot of insight about the world based on that, without necessarily needing those dream experiences to be eyewitness testimony. All right, so what is D-SETI? D-SETI stands for either the Dream Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence or the Dream Studies of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, depending on your perspective. ET contact is a dreamlike experience, and therefore D-SETI honors the reality of dreams by respecting you, the dreamer, as the final authority regarding the significance of the dream, including ontological. So you get to say whether your UFO ET contact story was a dream, dreamlike, real, unreal, or all of it. It's up to you to decide. D-SETI offers Dreamwork sessions and educations through the work of me, Daniel Rection. I hold a master's degree in East-West psychology, bachelor's in the Western liberal arts, a certificate in hypnotherapy and depth hypnosis, a Beyond Quantum Healing certification, and I'm a PhD student in the Integral Noetic Science program at CIHS. It is really important to note that ET contact and Dreamwork are triggering, taboo, and projection prone, so please be mindful as you explore this field. To learn more, sign up for e-courses, or schedule time with me, you can go to dseti.org.